Hey guys, welcome back to the channel, hope you're doing well. Okay, let's do a quick recap of week 3 of the marathon train so far, and week 3 is also the third week of the 6-week endurance train block. Monday was just 10k's of recovery, just did on grass at Bankstown City Sports Complex. I felt really sluggish because of the Sunday's long run, wearing the DB8 in the rain. I'm glad I took it fairly slowly. I don't think I was willing to go any faster, and there's really no need. Tuesday was a 19k medium long run. I did it around Riverwood and Peakhurst along my usual route, plus a bit of exploring around Padstow Heights. Felt fairly solid, but it was quite humid again for some reason. Wednesday was a 23km medium long run. I revisited an old route towards George's Hall and Lake Gillawana. It felt a bit harder than it needed to be, maybe because it's quite humid again, but also there was 2 medium long runs in a row. It feels like an oversight in the training plan. It didn't feel too productive overall. Maybe a shorter general aerobic run would have been better, or maybe I'm just complaining too much. I managed to get through it okay. It definitely felt worse than a run than how it actually ended up being on paper. I also wore my newer Speed 3s, which I think was a good call because I'd probably be a bit more beat up if I just wore my older pair, which I already wore the day before. Thursday was 10 kilometers of recovery. I did it on grass again at Bankstown City Sports Complex. It was a cool and dry morning, so the grass wasn't that wet, and yeah, it was like fairly nice conditions overall. Friday was a 16k run of 8 kilometers at lactate threshold. I did it at the Salt Pan Creek Reserve along my usual fast run loop. It was a fairly cool morning, so it was fairly decent conditions to run in. Again, it felt slightly worse than how it actually ended up being on paper. I think that's just how lactate threshold runs tend to be. I feel like I had to stay fairly focused throughout and put a bit of extra effort because the speed freeze is starting to feel quite mushy for these fast efforts. I might be better off with something a bit firmer like my Northern Pro freeze, but maybe I'm just a bit tired from the medium long runs over the past few days. Saturday was 10k's recovery, again at Rhodes Park Run. It was another record turnout week. I don't know if it's 754 or like 801 park runners, but yeah, it's still a bunch. I started it back again and ended up with a very humbling first kilometer. Anyways, I mostly took it chill, but it takes so much control to go at recovery effort at park run. Sunday was supposed to be a 26 kilometers medium long run, but I decided to do a group long run, or rather be like a local tour guide and show Mark, Joe and Hui some of my usual routes around Riverwood and also M5 Linear Park. It was quite fun to show them the route because they haven't really been there much or at all. I think the last time we all ran together was around late November last year along the Parramatta Valley Cycleway from Parramatta to Meadowbank and then back. That run was about 15k's and in hotter and more humid conditions, but I think we've all improved a fair bit since then, and it was good to get a run in together again. We all managed to finish long run fairly well and ended up doing like about 21 kilometers. It wasn't really at my medium long run pace or anything, but yeah, it should be fine. It's still a decent amount of time over feet, and yeah, it was very enjoyable overall. Overall, the total mileage for week 3 was about 108 kilometers. Feeling somewhat decent still, but I'm also waiting for some cooler and less humid mornings. Even though the first month of autumn is almost over, for whatever reason, there's still plenty of like humid mornings. Can't really do much about it, but oh well. Anyways, I've been mentioning running by feel and effort a few times lately, so let's quickly talk about what it means to me. These days, I think most of us runners have some kind of fitness tracker, running watch or smartwatch of some kind, and depending on the model, it may track heart rate, GPS, which means like distance and like pace as well, cadence and so on. These watches are very useful and smart, providing us with so much data, all from a device that we can wear. Pretty amazing technology really, but there's times where it's not quite right either. For example, what happens when you run around tall buildings or lots of trees or even like through tunnels? The GPS tends to be thrown off, so you may have noticed that the reported distance and pace gets thrown off as well. Or what happens when you wear the watch too loosely, or when rain or water gets in between the heart rate sensor and your skin? The heart rate readings tend to be thrown off as well, and suddenly it seems to be lower or higher than usual, or even stuck to your cadence instead. I use the Garmin Forerunner 245. It's a bit old now, but still works fairly well. During my runs, I usually just have timer, distance, and heart rate on the screen. Time is the most accurate, of course, but I don't really check it much since my prescribed runs are distance-based rather than time-based. Distance is fairly accurate, and sometimes I'll check it when I'm trying to like measure out or plan out routes during a run or for future reference. And heart rate is mostly to sometimes check what it reads during like threshold runs or when I go really steep hills doing long runs out of curiosity. For the most part, I don't really look at my watch that much during my runs, but after my runs I upload to like Garmin and Strava. Sometimes I quickly check the data and see whether the GPS was okay and whether the heart rate and pace sort of aligns with how I felt during a run. Most of the time it's good enough and I'm totally fine with it. And sometimes the results on paper will even be better than how I felt during the run. So overall, my watch isn't always accurate or precise, but has been fairly consistent over time. Sometimes it's totally off, but I don't really mind because there's not much I can do about it, and doesn't really change the fact that I still went out and got the run done. Some of the new watches of today are way more accurate and has all the fancy features as well. But honestly, even if I was to upgrade, I don't think it'd change the way I run or train much. Anyways, on that note, the way I run and train is more around focusing on the types of prescribed runs, their purpose, and also the effort that's required for each, rather than getting too specific into like heart rate zones, pace, and so on. A lot of it comes from trial and error and experience, and also that I've been doing the Pfitz and Go programs for a good while now, and so I'm used to the way I approach each type of run. For example, recovery runs are chill and easy. I do them with my beat up pair of Rebels on grass that tends to be wet and soggy these days, all while it's dark and early in the morning, so it's not like I can go fast anyway. Of course, except when I'm at a parkrun where it's mostly pavement and, you know, parkrun atmosphere, I guess. They're also usually scheduled in the days between workouts, so if I want to be able to do well my workouts, I can't be pushing on recovery runs. General aerobic runs are a bit faster than recovery runs, but slower than long runs. In my mind, they're like filler runs to boost volume, and they're not there for the purpose of recovery, nor are they there to be workouts either. Hill sprints and strides are just super fast but relaxed and controlled. They shouldn't be that strenuous or intense, since each rep is quite short and there's decent rest in between reps. Medium long runs and long runs are proper endurance workouts, and are done at whatever pace and effort I feel it takes to get through the entire distance without fading too much. It's fast in general aerobic runs, but slower than marathon pace and threshold, and I try to carry water and control my efforts up the hills so that the entire run is at a fairly steady effort. Marathon pace is a bit faster than medium long runs and long runs, but also slower than threshold. In my mind, it should be a strong effort that takes a bit of focus, but shouldn't be a struggle since I do have to maintain for about 3 hours doing an actual marathon race. Threshold is a bit faster than marathon pace, but slower than intervals. I think for me, threshold runs require the most amount of focus. I feel like it's one of the tougher workouts because you're towing the line between aerobic and anaerobic, so it's a bit uncomfortable, but I try to do them at a bit below that fine line so that I'm less likely to go overboard, recover better the next day, and still get the benefits. Intervals are supposedly at 5k race pace. In my mind, it's just whatever it takes for me to complete the rep fairly quickly. It should be quick enough to be slightly above threshold as well, but definitely not redlining it. Tune-up races are supposed to be very close to all out, but I gotta keep in mind that they'll be done in the thick of training, surrounded by all those intervals and also massive long runs over peak weeks. So it's more like whatever I can manage in the middle of those training conditions. But really for me, it's mostly to get race experience, enjoy a bit of fruits of labor from training so far, and mostly to have some fun as well. Not everyone trains this way, but it's just an example of how I personally do it. Some training plans tell you to run by duration rather than distance, and I think that's pretty reasonable since there's less pressure to hit a certain distance. Some are pretty specific with pace, but I feel like I don't want to be too fast on pace when it's something that can be thrown off quite easily depending on GPS signals and other environmental factors. Also, beyond your watch and train plans, there's many other factors that might affect how your run feels and how it turns out. For example, if it's really hot and humid outside, your body will likely be working harder than usual to keep it cool. So you can't really be pushing your pace too hard, otherwise you may overheat or get like dehydrated. If you had to run in those conditions, you'll likely need to go a bit slower and maybe even bring more water or even stop for more water breaks. Or let's say there's like a massive uphill doing your long runs. If you try to go up the hill at the same pace that you've been doing while it's been flat, your heart rate will likely spike up. And if it's like a really long incline, or if you keep going fast up multiple hills during the run, you may start fading as well. So I feel like it's okay to slow down a bit while going up hills. Your pace while going up the hill might drop a bit, but at least you'll be able to get through your run more evenly. Another factor could be, what if you have a scheduled run in the morning, but had poor sleep from the night before, or even if you feel a bit sore or have a slight strain from a workout recently, maybe you can adjust the run by shortening it, adjusting the intensity, or even just skipping it. Maybe you can even power through it like it's no big deal as well, and it may or may not go well. Sometimes you won't know until you start running, but I think it's about having options to choose from based on experience from past runs and how you currently feel, rather than just entirely sticking to the plan. Those are just some simple examples, but basically the idea is it's mostly about listening to your body and being aware of your surroundings, the environment, your physical and mental state, and so on. A big part of it is also experience and learn to adjust your efforts accordingly so that you can run better over time. It mostly means we have to just run more and see how it goes, including trying new routes, doing different types of runs in like various conditions, and so on. It might also help to have a journal as well, and being able to note down your observations and how you felt for a certain day or run, because I feel like putting your thoughts down on paper may help reinforce your ideas and understandings and also become reference points. Overall, I do feel like getting used to running by feel and effort has helped me focus less on the data side of things during the run, but sometimes I still analyze the data a bit afterwards just to help reinforce my understanding of how I felt throughout and also help plan out future runs. I also think it's made me somewhat of a conservative runner as well, to the point where I don't really push it that much even in races, for example, but I do feel like I'm still slowly improving for now and I'm still enjoying my runs. That's what really matters to me, I guess. Anyways, I hope all of that has been insightful in some kind of way. It's mostly just food for thought, and it's just the way I like to approach my running for now, but feel free to let me know your experience when it comes to like running by feel and effort. That's pretty much all I have to say for now. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye!